I'm going to introduce our next author. She's a management consultant, an author, a food critic, a columnist, a TV anchor on the local channel, Goa 365, as well as the co-founder of the Goan Culinary Club, or the Goa chapter, of course. She's the winner of the Gourmand World Cookbook Award 2008, the special jury for the book on her father-in-law, Maskey, the man behind the legend. We've all heard of that. She's been awarded the GCCI Certificate of Appreciation for her literary efforts, besides 2 books for tweens, the Alfie Alfonso series. She has authored 4 books on food. So worthy. And we are so privileged to have her with us this evening. And of course, we're just about to see the launch of her book. I'd like you to join me in welcoming onto stage to join Floyd, Odette Mascarenhas. There she is. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
That is a beautiful book, thank you. But I got to tell you a story. Please.
Thank you.
I'm going to visit my sister today, this afternoon, and I was telling her that I'm at this festival, and I told her that I said I have to introduce a book today, and I told her whose book I was introducing, and her husband got all excited. He said, "Oh, I watch her on TV all the time. I love watching her stuff." So thank you for this wonderful work of art.
Oh, thank you so very much. More than the work of art, it's basically to unfold, to show people the story of Goan food. 60 years ago, Goa was known only for the hippies and the flower people. Nobody really knew what was happening in those kitchens. Nobody really knew that each house had its own orchard and its own chilies. Nobody knew that there were more than 40 varieties of fish available in the sea. And these were little stories that were only kept in households. We somehow or the other, like you just mentioned, we talk about our Vindaloo, we talk about our Kafrial, we talk about our Sorpatel. We know a little bit of the history of how it came down from the Portuguese. But maybe we should also delve that there's a cuisine that was much before the Portuguese came in. And that was what we call our prawn curry today. And we were just talking about it, my mother's prawn curry.
I think my mother's is better.
Oh, we always say that. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a little bit of a...
This is a very interesting conversation too, because I was, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I have 2 boys.
Okay.
And when I grew up, I hated Goa rice, because we ate it every single day and I didn't want anything to do with it. 16 years ago, I went and visited my aunt in Mapsa, and she cooked Goa rice and she showed me how to cook it. And now, whenever I make any Goan fish curry or shrimp curry or anything, I always make Goa rice. And my son, and I tell him the story, because I believe that if you're going to do a cuisine, it's important to tie in the stories, because when we were young, we'd visit my grandmother, who had paddies, and in October, when the rice was harvested, she would lay it out on the mats in the sun, and we would walk over it. But when I tell my son that story and tell him that this is why we eat this rice, it makes it more special for him.
I'll share something more. That rice was not only for eating. That rice was made into sweets, it was made into pore, it was made into atol, it was made into odgier. Now these were some of the preparations which perhaps even I, after living 20 years in Goa, had not heard of. And I'm going to, a little later, unveil a brand new culinary treat. As you can see, all these ladies who are here, the book showcases secrets which perhaps could be lost. We went across 12 talukas. We crossed mountains and rivers, a side of Goa which maybe a lot of tourists have not seen. Normally they come to Goa for beaches and fun and sand, but there is such intricate mystery behind. You as a chef will know that at times the spices seem to talk to you. And that is where I saw in the spice plantations, when they were using all the spices, They were standing there with those big wooden sticks and grinding them fresh, not from packets.
You know, the other interesting thing is that most good cooks don't want to share their recipes. And when I started cooking in the United States and I opened my first restaurant, I didn't want anybody to copy my style of cuisine because I was very progressive. I was thinking things that grew in America, and I was applying my Indian sensibility to everything. So my food didn't look Indian, but it tasted Indian. And people would ask me for recipes, and I didn't want to share them. And then my boss told me something which has influenced me ever since. He says, when someone copies your food or imitates your food, it is the highest form of flattery. So all you Goan cooks out there who have all these special recipes, share them, because that's actually celebrating what you do and celebrating your craft. And I hope you continue to do these wonderful things, because
I'd like to give credit to the chefs of Goa. As they said that we have founded a Goan Culinary Club. Now, as you rightly pointed out, it was before a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law syndrome. Like the mother-in-law never shares the recipes with the daughter-in-law because she wants her son to love her more. So it was something like that where chefs would not, share what they were actually making. But on this platform of the club, we actually got chefs sharing, and we had all these tastings going on. Do you know, if you go to different restaurants, you'll get 7 or 8 different varieties in terms of the color of the curry. Yeah. And what people really do not understand, that each taluka of Goa has got its own ingredients. Like if you talk about the shagoti today, I think we're going to have a shagoti somewhere. Why call it a shakuti? Originally it was a shagoti. But like I said, across history as it has come, we have been influenced right from the time when the Saraswats came in. Then we went to the Hindu Goans, then we went to the Muslim Goans, then the Portuguese came in, then the Christian Goans. And each cuisine had its own history. And the book goes through each and every influence, because history makes the present. And we have not delved into that so far, and I'm very proud of the fact that all our chefs sat together and said, all right, let's find which is the best curry found in maybe Baddes, or which is the best curry found in Perne. Do you know the history of the shagoti?
I don't, unfortunately, but I got to share a story with you. When we were growing up as kids, okay, we were all allowed to have one dish made, for our birthday. And my dish was shagoti.
I guessed as much. Now, I'm also going to ask you, how many ingredients did your mother put in?
My mother put, I'd say more than 12.
In Perne, they use 19 ingredients.
I think it is 19. I wasn't sure, but it is.
No, but in Bisholin they use 13. You know, each taluka, again because of the influences, and we went to people's houses to say that, okay, if they use maize, how is it going to affect the taste? If they're going to use khaskhas, how would it affect the thickness and the texture? And that is why you had so much of regional variations. Now, if you go to a place like Italy, you will know that Tuscany or Sicily will have their own regional cuisine. But here, the chefs sat together to find out our very own regional curries.
But I think we should not forget the regional shakutis or whatever the curry is, because I think that's an important part of the culture, an important part of the history too. It's not forget, all the influences, the political and religious influences that go ahead, but being able to share that and teach people, like, okay, that's fine if it's a little different, that's fine if your prawn curry is not as good as my prawn curry.
Doesn't make a difference.
It doesn't make it. They're still two very, and again, I'm saying that as a joke, so please don't take offense. But it makes it special, and learning to appreciate the two different kinds of prawn curries.
But you're talking about the Christian.
It could be any religion, but understanding the difference and respecting the difference.
And that is where we found out that if you do a Saraswat, they call it a Human. If you do a Saraswat prawn curry, or if you do a Hindu Goan prawn curry, if you do a prawn curry in Baddes and you do a prawn curry in Salset, every prawn curry will be different in color, in texture, in taste. Why? In Salset they were richer, they took out the coconut milk.
Oh, that's what my mom used to say that because my dad was from Salsett and my mom was from Baldez.
Oh, did they have fights in the house?
And it did always happen because our cook was from Salsett and they would always say the curry's not the right color or it's got, it's so
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing which we did a lot of study on. And then what is happening, like today you will hear these beautiful coconut trees. We don't even have a toddy tapper who will climb up. And yet, majority of the Portuguese Goan preparations, and I'm using the word Portuguese Goan, for the simple reason a lot of their preparations were inspired and changed with the spices that they brought in. So let's take the Apati Kamara, a beautiful preparation which perhaps today not many people make. Why? We don't get the toddy. It's not very easy to get it. No one to climb up the trees. So each and every preparation has got a sort of a link or a history to eat the ingredients which are available. So again, kokum, tamarind, bimli. You put bimli into a curry, or you put the pardo, which is your your mango seed, your dried mango seed. You're smiling, you know what I'm talking, and I'm sure your mouth is watering too.
Yeah, because you know what, I bring these things from India and expose them to people because people, they think that you only use lemon juice or yogurt in everything, but you can use biblis, you can use mango, you can use tamarind, you can use all these different acidifying agents, and Goan cuisine has something that is a balance, which I think all good cuisines have, is a acid, sweetness, the slight bitterness, and the spice.
Yes.
And having that perfect balance is what makes cuisine interesting.
No, I'm so happy that chefs like you are taking Goan cuisine to the world, because I'd like to share something. 2008, I was standing in Paris and talking about the Goan cuisine, because as you know, I'm sure you heard about it, my father-in-law being the first executive chef of Taj, took the prawn curry to Bombay in 1939. And we were very happy that someone actually put it on the menu. And I was standing on stage there and talking to a whole group of people from all around the world. And I was talking about our cuisine. And during the break, they looked at me and they turned around and they said, we've heard about the chicken butter masala, we've heard about the biryani, we've even heard about a dosa, but we've not heard Goa is just for beaches. And that was a time when we realized there's so much of a rich variation in our cuisine. Why is it that we're not able, and I'm again going to question you on that, even to a place like Bombay, Mumbai, how many Goan restaurants are there?
There aren't very many, but the ignorance of diners everywhere. I had a restaurant at Table on the lower floor, which was home-style Indian food, and I made things that you'd never see in restaurants, and I made kaldeen once.
Oh, lovely.
Okay?
Lovely.
And a British lady came in, she sat on the bar, and I happened to go around the kitchen at that time, and she asked the waiter to see the chef, so I went to her, and she says, how dare you call this a curry? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's saying, this is not a curry, it's too loose. You should be able to eat it with a roti. And I told her, no, you eat this with rice. Because
see, we are talking also about the kaldeen where ignorance plays such an important role. Do you know in Goa, 3 months of the year, the local Goans are vegetarian? And we look at Goa and we say, oh, it's for pork and it's for meat and it's for fish. And that is why I put a whole chapter in this book on vegetarian food. There are such fantastic vegetarian preparations because we talk about the golden era of Goa where the Kadambas were here, Kadambas were vegetarian. And there are such beautiful preparations. In fact, today one of our ladies here are going to demonstrate, because you're talking about the ambadai, the hog plum. When I talk to people about the ambadai, they talk about mangoes. I said, no, please, for heaven's sake, there's such a unique taste in this preparation. And they do it for Ganesh, they do it for Diwali, because there are festivals where they are pure vegetarian. And people come to go and say, can I have a palak paneer, or can I have a dal makhani? And I say, oh my gosh, have you tasted our udamethi? Have you tasted our sansa? Have you tasted our varan? Have you tasted all those preparations? And it's just a blank look.
yeah, it's very unfortunate. So, what I'm going to do is, because I want to see what they have.
Oh yes.
And you've been alluding to them all night. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull myself out of this, and I'm going to let you take this over and introduce us to all the lovely
on both sides
that I am waiting to see what they have, because
all right,
I'm really
ladies,
excited.
Here we come.
So,
You can see the first lady On the screen there, her name is Amita Salatri. And she comes from the remotest part of Goa, which is Kankon. Now to reach Amita Salatri's village, Floyd, I think I'll take you and I'll introduce you to the ladies. To reach her village, we had to go through narrow footbridges. We had to go through rivers which were swollen in the rain. We had to walk through actual swamps because her village at one time was actually submerged by the river and people had to be airlifted by helicopter during a real heavy rain. So here we have Amita from Kankon, the best chilies of Goa, which today unfortunately are in very short supply because they were made by the original inhabitants of Goa who were the Kunbis. Now if you think about the Kunbi sari, the red sari which was our national, which we call our national dress here or our state dress, is basically from this region. Now Amita here, and I'm going to give her the mic so she can also demonstrate, is making one of those preparations which I spoke to Floyd about, which is the Ambade Sansa. She's got the hog plum. Can you just put it up, Amita, so people can see?
Put it on the, it's going on video. It's going on video.
Sorry. And at what time of the year do you normally get this? Because this is very seasonal.
This is a seasonal fruit vegetable and you get them from June to say till December. It gives two crops. Again, you get them in March, May, like that. March to May.
And this preparation which you're going to make, when do you normally serve it in your homes?
This is called Amareche Sasam. See, now you can see these plums, Amare. In our Saraswat cuisine, we make 3 dishes of this Amare. One is this Sasam, what I'm going to show you. One is Amarechi Karam and one is Amarechi Udad Methi. This is a curry. Whenever these plums are available, we make this Amarechi Udad Methi on Monday, Thursday when we have pure vegetarian food. And Amarechi Sasam and Karam is made mostly at the time of Diwali, Ganesh, even otherwise. This Sasam, what I'm going to show you today, is to be eaten with your thali, veg thali. So it's very tasty. Even Karam is tasty and Amarechi Udad Methi also is tasty.
She's making our mouths water already. Now while she's going to show us a simple demonstration of how it is going to be done, there's a little bit of a myth, I'm sure a lot of us have heard, in terms of how the Saraswat, who actually lived along the banks of the Saraswat river in the 6th century BC, was shown this beautiful paradise of Goa because they were fish-eating Brahmins. Besides being fish-eating Brahmins, they have a lot of vegetarians. So, will you start preparing it?
Yeah.
Other people come on this side. Come on.
When we talk about Saraswat cuisine, veg food, we are very strict. Veg means we don't use onion, garlic, because according to our system, even garlic comes in non-veg. So no garlic and no onion particularly. So this dish I'm going to show you is pure veg. I've taken 6 plums. Okay, so Amade, 2 katoris grated coconut. Katoris means this size. In our language we call this vati. In Hindi we say katori. So 2 katori full grated coconut, half katori grated jaggery.
Anita, you can show it to the camera.
Yeah.
Okay. The camera.
Half katori grated jaggery. I already showed you 2 katoris grated coconut, 1 tablespoon roasted mustard seed. You have to roast them first without oil, just plain roasted. Okay, 1 tablespoon. Then 5 peppercorns. Can you see it in the camera? 5 peppercorns. 2 green chilies. And salt to the taste. I repeat, 2 bowls of grated coconut, half bowl grated jaggery, 1 tablespoon roasted mustard seeds, 5 peppercorns, 2 green chilies, and salt to the taste. What you have to do first is you have to peel the plums. Okay, you have to peel it with peeler. Then you have to cook it in a utensil like this. See, you can see now the peeled one. Actually, I was, Odette said you have to cook within 3 minutes. So I already cooked it and brought it here. So these are already cooked, but I am putting them in this container and I am pretending that I am cooking it. Think that it's cooking, getting cooked. Meanwhile, you have to grind a chutney out of what? Grated coconut, jaggery, pepper, chilies, and salt with little water. When your paste is chutney is ready, almost ready, that time only you have to add this mustard seeds which are roasted and just grind it for 3-4 seconds, not much. Okay, understood? No? So this chutney you have to keep ready. Here my chutney is already ready, you can see. What happens if you grind this mustard seeds too much? You will get that bitter taste. So at the last you have to put just 2 seconds and your chutney is ready.
Alright,
Yeah.
Amita, so you've got the chutney ready, you've got the ambare ready.
Yeah.
What exactly now? You mix it up together.
Now I'm pretending that, oh, it's hot, huh? I'm using this. Okay, now I've taken it from the chula. Now what you have to do is, after it gets cooled down, you have to squeeze the pulp thoroughly. So after you squeeze the pulp of this, it becomes like this. You are not going to throw the seeds, the central part out. But see how nicely, Ami Koklin Mantat Baga Khoddo Kelo means he cheated me. See here all these amades are already cheated. This thing is taken from there. All the, I would say everything, whole and soul of it. Okay, now this paste, it's almost ready now. You have to mix this pulp of these plums which is squeezed along with the seeds and this chutney together, and then just check the salt and the dish is ready. Now I'm going to mix it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while she's mixing it, my friends, we showed you the first influence in Goa, which was Saraswat cuisine. There are many Saraswats still, right from 6th century BC, who still remain in Goa despite every other influence that came into Goa. But I'm going across the room because from the Saraswats, the next part to affect ours was the Hindu Goan. Now we spoke about the Maratha influence, we spoke about many of the Hindu Goans who basically came here. I have got Lalita Kurgaonkar Shah who has made. Bhai, tumhi kide khelete?
आईन केले सागोती आणि पोळे.
A very interesting preparation. She comes in from Perne, which is on the other side of Goa, beautifully known for the beaches. We hear about the Agonda beach, the Ashwe beach. Agonda is in Kankon, but we hear about the Ashwe, the Mojim, all these beaches. But very few people know that the Shagoti was originally made in Perne. And why did it come there? Because Perne was known for its laterite stone. And we used the stone, the masons used a lot of that stone for building churches, temples, etc. And they loved to have it because it's a very spicy preparation, so that the sweat oozed from their pores and they could have a siesta in the afternoon and hence get a good nap. With us, she made the pore. The pore are the rice bakri, the same parboiled rice which
राईस आणि डाळ.
she's put
उडदाची डाळ.
urad dal and rice and made the pore. So besides having the rice plain, the paddy was also used for making this pore. Now, after the Hindu Goans came in, we had a different influence, and again people are not aware that the Muslims, from the Delhi Sultanate to the Sultan of Bijapur, many of them came and people settled down in Goa. Now, the interesting part is, we spoke about the curry, the fish curry. Even in Muslim homes, the curry is made and it's called kadhi. तुम लोग कड़ी बोलते हैं और हर रोज
कढी खाता है.
कड़ी खाते हैं. आज आपने क्या किया?
मटन बनाया
She has made a mutton salan. Now we have heard ये mutton salan है
मटन सालन है
और कभी बनता है
फेस्टिवल पे ईद पे
For Eid, they make this mutton salan. Now we know it as a dish perhaps from outside Goa. But the unique part of this mutton is that they use local spices like coconut.
हाँ कोकोनट डाला
और क्या लगाते हैं इसमें?
और हरा मसाला ये सब लहसुन हरी कोतमीर अदरक को सब मिला के रखता है और फिर ये सूखा मसाला पूरा फ्राई करके फिर पाउडर बना के फिर खोबरा डाल के सब उसमें डाल
So a different twist to the salan which basically is seen outside in other parts of Goa. यहाँ ये राइस बनाया
राइस बनाया उसमें नारियल का दाल दूध निकाल के नारियल का रस निकाल के फिर मसाला डाल के फिर घी और बघार डाल के फिर उसमें बनाया
All right, so she says she uses a lot of coconut milk in the preparation of this rice, which is normally had with the mutton salan for Eid. Now, the Muslims were defeated when the Portuguese came in. And here I've got a lady who's got in some of the preparations which today we term as Portuguese Goan. Now, the reason I'm calling it a Portuguese Goan is that the Portuguese brought in a lot of continental flavors. But with the continental flavors, they also brought in the spices to trade. And the very, creative Goans decided that the continental flavor was not very appetizing for them. So they changed the taste by adding the spices. And Linda here has got two dishes. What is this, Linda?
This is feijoada. It's made of beans and sausages. And this is a unique dish which we all of us Goans we enjoy at home. It's a really delicious dish. And all these spices go into it, the red chili, the sausages, and the beans are soaked and prepared. And
I'll just take a little break here because she spoke about the feijoada. Now this itself has got a very unique history. The Portuguese brought it all the way from Brazil. But in Brazil, the people who actually created the dish were the Portuguese, the slaves, the Brazilian slaves. Because they took the beans which they normally had as their meal and used the trimmings of the pork which the Portuguese would leave behind, mix it together and created this feijoada. Of course it came here and I think as you can see all the ingredients here, we have added a lot more spice to it and the famous Goan sausages which is the chorizo. And you also have one more preparation here.
that is the cabidel.
Yes. How many of us have eaten or tasted a pork cabidel? We have heard about the sorpatel, we have heard about the vindaloo, but the cabidel, which basically again was brought in by the Portuguese, not found very except in a few homes, because Linda shared a thought with me that they use pig blood as a thickening agent. Am I right?
Yes, they mix the pig blood with vinegar and then it's put into it. So, and the heart, little kidneys, everything is put in that. And
They use every part of the pig. That is, we are very thrifty Goans. I think we don't like to waste anything. Every part of it is used.
wasted. Correct.
And of course, she's got the bibinka here. Again, a beautiful story for those of you who have not heard it. In the 16th century, they say there was a nun called Sister Bibiana who was feeling very homesick. She was dreaming about her home in Lisbon. And then she decided to make a dessert because the nuns were very famous for their desserts. So she took it layer by layer by layer and made a Christmas dessert with no name. But people loved it so much because it has a lot of egg yolk and as you can see it's very beautifully done in layers. Linda is cutting it. That they decided to name it after her. So Sister Bibiana's dessert became Bibinka. Linda, that's a nice, very big piece which she's sharing with everybody. All right. The Portuguese ultimately ensured that there were a lot of intermarriages. And then came a new cuisine which we have categorized as Christian Goan. Now, what is Christian Goan? Very often you would find a lot of preparations which actually originated in Portuguese households, but due to intermarriage with the Hindus, a lot of them married across the community and a lot of spice was added. And today on Christian Goan festival tables, you would find the roast chicken. A roast chicken which maybe in a Portuguese home would be called a rechado de galinha. Catholic household, you will have the nhoris. Now, making of nyoris is a home, or used to be a home traditional affair. And here you can see, this is a Christmas tray. I'm sure a lot of us who are from Bombay, etc., will be aware that this would always be there for everybody when you go during Christmas week. You have marzipan, you have perad. Perad is a guava sweet. What else do you have, Annie, here?
I've got Choco Nut Delight, okay, chocolate nuts delight. Then I've got Christmas hollies, I've got kalkals, I've got guava cheese, I've got marzipans.
All right,
And
this is a must when you go to everyone's home for Christmas. But and these are the rose cookies and the nyoris.
These are the nyorios. Can I speak on the mic?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
These are the nyorios which I specially make with Christmas hollies, Christmas candles. So I would love everybody to come and see how this is made. I wouldn't like to demonstrate how I make them. You feel that you should not eat them, only showcase them, because you feel so hurt to eat them because they really look so beautiful. I'm trying to praise my own item, but I think you must come and have a good look at it.
All right, that is Annie really tempting us. It's Christmas time and you've got all your goodies here. My friends, there's much, that's what we are trying to say, and that's what's all in the book. Besides your Vindaloo, your Kafrial and all these things, there is much, much more. The culinary heritage of Goa showcases 140 forgotten researched recipes. We've gone across to every category of cuisine, from the Saraswat to the Hindu Goan, to the Muslim Goan, to the Portuguese Goan, and finally the Christian Goan. What we try to say, the chefs, the Goan Culinary Club, would like everybody to realize that Goa is much more than just what it showcases at present. And hopefully in the years to come, we, the people of Goa, will definitely be taking much, much, much more to titillate everybody's appetite. Bon appetit.